Hi, welcome everybody. It's Chris Petri, and thanks for coming by. I just want to say right in the beginning here, we're going to have a great time. We're going to do some occasional cards on this video, just one card actually. We'll show you how you can get the proper dimensions of your card, how to tape your cards so you have a nice border, so you'll have some room left to put some messages on there, whatever it might be that you're going to put on your occasional card. Happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, happy Father's Day, anything you want to do. Get well soon, congratulations, whatever your card is. They're really fun to make. You make them homemade, and people just love them, don't they? I know some of you have already been making cards. You give them to your friends, to your loved ones, to your family, and they just go crazy over homemade cards with watercolors and so forth. So let's get right into it here. So I'm going to start with, I'll just use a piece of printer paper here. And what we'll do is we'll just kind of have the idea of, if we're going to make an occasional card, let's fold it first so that we kind of get the feel for the card and the way it's going to be for our final product. So let's say we're going to take this one and make it a portrait style card, which is upright. All we have to do is, even for this printer paper, we take it, fold it in half, and then just crease it like this, and then you have your card just like that. Simple as that. And then you would just do the same thing with your watercolor paper. So you would trim your watercolor paper down if it's a really large sheet, or it depends. Like this is an 11 by 14 size paper, watercolor paper. So if I fold this in half like so, I'll do that now. I'll fold this in half and crease it like this, and that's all you need to do is just make a crease in it with your hand like so. And there you go, you have a card. The only thing, this one is a little bit, an 11 by 14, it probably would work this way. But to do it in a portrait style, it's a little bit too large on the vertical axis. So I would trim this card down a little bit. If I was making out of an 11 by 14, if I folded it in half and I was making a vertical card or a horizontal card, I would make it a little smaller so that it's not as elongated. That doesn't look as pleasant. If you have something like an 8.5 by 11 printer paper, that's a good size. That's perfect actually. So you can get a landscape version of the card like this if you set it up on the table, or you can use this in a portrait format just like this, and you can just set it up on a table like so. So you can use this as your guide. A regular printer paper, one sheet of printer paper folded in half, gives you a perfect size for either a landscape or a portrait style card like so. And again, if you have like an 11 by 14 watercolor paper, you're maybe going to want to trim this down a little bit. It doesn't look so good on this. On the landscape, it's too wide too. So it doesn't, it's natural to see a card like this. Like when you get cards from people, it's usually like this type of ratio. It's close to this ratio usually, even a little bit less. So sometimes, if you notice, occasional cards, when you buy them in the store, thank you cards, even, those are a little more square. They're not as, they're not as wide on the vertical or the horizontal. So even the cards at the store, most of the cards at the store are like this though, like a printer paper folded in half. That's a good standard format you can use, and then you could take that and just put it on top of an 11 by 14 paper. If you have watercolor paper that's a little bit oversized, you fold the printer paper, put it on top of your watercolor paper, and draw a pencil line both ways on both sides like this, and like this. And then you could trim it with scissors. Trim it with scissors like this and like this to make it a little smaller, because again, this is too large. So with this, I could probably make this into 4 cards. So an 11 by 14, we could divide this in half, and I bet we can make 2 cards out of this. So let's take this, and I'm just going to measure, find out where the halfway point is on this. Okay, so this is 11, so 5.5 inches is the halfway point. Like that. And And then what we'll do after that is we'll take the ruler and just make a line across like that. I'll make it a little bit darker maybe. Like that. And that's the halfway point. So that's the halfway point on an 11 by 14, and then I'm going to have my scissors here. I'll just trim this down halfway. And there we have it. Much better. So that works like this. Like that. And it can also work like this, fine. Just like that. Okay, so we'll do a vertical format like this. And then now the next thing is very simple. We're going to tape it so that we can have plenty of room to put our message on the bottom and then have a nice border around it. Have a nice crisp white border around the face of the card. And we'll put our artwork and our painting right in the middle. So I'm going to use my this is what they call painter's tape or low tack paint, and so we'll just do this here. Okay, so we put a little bit of that low tack painter's tape. You can get this in any big box store, paint store, hobby stores have it. Painter's tape, drafting tape, and then we'll go around with more drafting tape or painter's tape around the edges. And it's as simple as that. We're just making a border around the card, as you can see, and that's as simple as that. And this really takes your card to a whole new level. If you just made a card and you painted on the face of your homemade cut watercolor paper and you didn't tape around it, it would really not look as good. If you put just a little bit of extra time in this and put a little bit of tape on there, you can't believe how great it's going to look. So we're going to go around all four sides of the card, and you recall that I added wider tape on the bottom here. You can see how wide that is at the bottom. I made this wider at the bottom. This is where we'll put our message at the bottom here. And you can put any message you like on your cards. Again, it's for any occasion, so you just fill in the occasion there. And let's see here. I think we're going to do let's do some flowers here. So I'm going to make a simple flower scene with a vase, and we'll see how that goes here. So I'm going to start out and leave a little bit of I'm going to pretend there's like a glass table here, so we're going to get some cool shadows and shimmering shadows and reflections on our glass table. And maybe our glass table's about a little bit more than a third of the way up from the bottom. So I'm just kind of using a approximate. So halfway's here, not quite halfway, but about a third of the way up. We'll put our line across for the back of the table. So I do that. And maybe I'll just do that. I'll make the pencil line across. I'll start it like that. Maybe I'll go with a little bit of a darker pencil line here so we can kind of see it. So that's like that and like that. Maybe I'll use a darker pencil. Okay, so we have the back of our table, and it's going to be like a glass tabletop, so it'll be a little more interesting than your maybe just an average type table. It's going to have a little more interest to it. And so we're going to have our vase here. We're having like a simple vase like this. That looks pretty good. Like that. So we have a vase on the table here. And then we're just going to do some leaves and forms here And we'll get some flowers in too as we go. Like that. And you can kind of see I'm going around with my leaf forms first, some leaves and things. And then we're just going to have some flowers up here. And you can just make some flower shapes. You don't have to get too... We're going to make this free and fun. Don't feel like you have to go and research flowers for hours and figure out how detailed it has to be. If you just get the basics of it, a couple flower shapes like so over here on the left, on the right-hand side, I should say. So that's two flowers over here, maybe another one, larger one here. Like that. And then some more petals of flowers over here. There's some smaller flowers in here. And then we leave a little bit of air space here. We don't want to fill everything in. So that's just enough that you put in some pencil lines for your flowers. You know, the petals and your flowers here. A couple petals in the middle. Some leaves. So you have some leaf forms here. And that should be good. You have some stems over here. And that should be just enough to have this card sing out looking beautiful. And maybe we have a window back here, so maybe we'll do a window. We'll do a window frame here. Like that. Maybe we'll have another bit of a window frame here. So this kind of gives us the feeling of light. So this is just maybe a glass table, kitchen table, dining room table, a vase, some flowers, and there's a window behind and there's light coming through. So we're going to see that this painting is going to be a backlit painting where the light's coming from the window, shining towards us. So we could take our light insignia up here and just put our light insignia on our tape like this, like that. And when we put that light insignia, we just know that the light is coming from the window and coming in this way. And it could be sunlight. You could put a sunshine type insignia. Sunlight coming in this way. And I think that's good. That's all we need for our pencil sketches, really just the basics like that. And then the rest we're going to do with our paint. And again, this is an Extreme Beginners series painting. So we're going to use our beginner's palette. So those of you that are familiar with this palette, you know, you're going to be fine. And if you're let's say you use my standard palette most times, most people that follow me, I know most of you guys are following me up with my regular palette. But this is the newer palette. Try to maybe pick one of these up for yourself. So this way when we do our Extreme Beginners, you can grab your beginner's palette. Even though you might be painting with me for 3-4 years and you're used to your other palette, maybe it's fun just to have one of these palettes too. Just to have, maybe this would be like if you go out and paint outdoors, maybe you just bring this because it's real light, real easy. It dries real fast, so you can just paint with it, fold it up, throw it in a bag, your purse or your backpack or whatever, and it dries fast, so the paints won't be leaking all over the place. And these are really fun. These are great palettes to use outdoors, actually. If you're going to do like maybe transporting it around, it is really easy with this palette because the paints dry fast and they activate quick too. All you do is spritz this real quick like this with a spritzer bottle, and it's ready to go, ready to paint. And it dries quick too, so once you're done painting, it'll be probably pretty dry. You can fold it up and throw it in a bag. It's not going to leak everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So this you'll find is a great palette just to have for fun, maybe to do some quick paintings or, you know, kind of like studies on things or whatever. Just a fun palette to have. You can use that too as well. And then we're just going to use our beginner's brushes, and we usually have about, 2 or 3 synthetic brushes that we have. These are by Princeton Art and Brush Company, and they come in like a 5-pack for like $10, and you get like 5 brushes. You get like 3 square brushes like this, and then you get a few round brushes. And I also have this round brush, and this one comes with the kit, with this paint kit. This is the Prang Oval 16 set. Prang Oval 16 semi-moist watercolors. It's made by Dixon. You can find this readily in hobby stores. You can find it online. You can find it on Amazon. eBay. You can find this anywhere online. Great. Again, it's a great set. We use this all the time on our Extreme Beginners series paintings here and videos. So let's continue on here. We have just a couple brushes we'll need. Synthetic round and this flat brush might work good too for some of the window panes here. So we'll try this out. We'll use these two. So I'm going to take a quick break. If that's okay by you, I'll take a quick break. I'm going to actually grab a cup of coffee, and then I'll be right back, okay? So just give me a few minutes, and I'll be right back. Hey, everybody, just a quick informational. I'm really excited. I've been invited to the Thousand Island Arts Center to teach a workshop this summer. It's August 9th, 10th, and 11th, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it's a daytime workshop, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're going to have an absolutely fantastic time. I'm going to put up the itinerary in just a second, too, as well. But I wanted you to have the Thousand Island Arts Center phone number so you can call to register, or you can also register online. That's up to you. Their phone number is 315-686-4123. Again, their phone number is 315-686-4123. Or you can also register and look up all the information online at TIARTSCENTER.org. Again, their website is TIARTSCENTER.org. I'll put the itinerary up here so you can I'll scroll it. I'm not going to read it. I'll just kind of scroll it up so you can kind of see the class description. And you can look this up online too. I encourage everybody to look for the brochure. If you go to the website, you'll see a brochure button. You click on that brochure button, you'll see my course, as well as other courses if you can't happen to make these dates, but you still want to take a watercolor class or watercolor course and workshop. And there's also an online course for watercolor artists. So if you're interested in doing online watercolor courses, they have those as well. That's something this is a great resource, everyone, for your watercolor art. I know some of you mentioned that you wanted to inquire about online art and watercolor painting classes. I'm not doing them right now. I'm really looking forward to maybe in the future doing some online courses, but right now I'm just not geared up for that right now. So they have them though for those that want to do online courses. But just a great resource, and beautiful historic area, beautiful scenery, water and boats everywhere, beautiful architecture, shopping. There's museums. So that's the itinerary. And I hope you'll all make it out to the workshop. And again, we're going to have a great time, tons of fun drawing and painting in watercolor. So I hope to see you there. And let's get back to our watercolor painting. All right, we are back and we're going to start painting. Let's get into it. First thing I would like to do is probably set the tone for the painting. So maybe we'll do some of the, I'm not sure I'm going to need this square brush. Let me try to see how we make out with this round brush here. But I want to set the tone for the painting with the windows. So I'm going to go with a little bit of black here, a little bit of brown. So I'm going to make a good dark of black and brown up here, and I want to leave that up there. Then I rinse my brush off good. And then what I usually do is I always have either a sponge next to my water bucket, or I use a tissue and I dry off a little bit of paint off my brush, and then I go back into this palette here and pick up more paint. So some darker darks for the window panes, and then, so what I'm going to do is sort of get my colors out first on my palette. That's always a good thing. Does that make sense? When we do our paintings, maybe if we put our colors out first on the palette, then we get that out of the way where we say, okay, you know, I'm looking at a photograph and I'm going to take the colors I can see, match them as best I can, and put them on the palette. Or if you're working from another watercolor book and you're going to be painting what you see in a watercolor book or on a video here, maybe you're using my video, and at the end of the video you pause the video and you look at my painting and you match the colors. Try to remember back to what colors I was using. But if you get them in the palette first, then you're kind of like halfway there. Then you can concentrate on the painting portion, and you just always know when you're running out of a color, you just put it back in the palette again to keep it, you know, so you have it out on the palette and you don't forget that you're using it. But for the most part, you'll see it here, so you won't forget it more or less. But it's a good rule of thumb to keep your palette stocked with the paint you're using if you run out. So if you're going to use the theory of if you can get your paint on your palette first, get it on there, mix it, get it out there on the palette, then you work from your palette into your painting, and you work that way. And then if you see you're running out of a color here, you say, I'm running out of some brown here, or I'm running out of some black. Let me add a little more black or brown up there. And then we'll work our way down. Let's do some green. Green. So we're going to do some green here, maybe some brown mixed in with that green, and some blue, purple and blue. We'll make that green a little darker. So we'll make a little bit of a kind of like a pine, or a sap green, like that, darker green, adding some blue and brown. And what else are we going to use here? We're going to have some white and some red. Let's do a little bit of rinse off the brush good, and we'll use some red for some pink and some more of a orangey red there, a warmer red. So you have a warm red here, and then you have a cooler red over here, which is more of a reddish, kind of going toward the purple, toward the cool side. So you have a light red here, like a pink, and then you have like a reddish orange over here, which is an interesting variation of the two reds there, so that you have some variation in the colors of the flowers maybe. And then let's use some blue. Some of that light blue, it's almost like a cerulean blue. We'll have some of that. We'll mix that in our palette. And then one more. Let's use a yellow and orange to make a yellow ochre. And a little bit of brown. So if you're kind of working with my normal colors all the time, you'll kind of notice I'm mixing, with my vision, I'm mixing a color that looks similar to like a raw sienna or yellow ochre here by just mixing the colors in this. So to get a yellow ochre with this palette, you would mix, you know, some of the lighter lemon yellow, and then you added just a touch of brown and a touch of orange, and that kind of gives you a yellow ochre raw sienna. And then you can work from there. So then we have our mixtures all out on the palette. So now we're all set. Now we're just going to go in and start putting our colors in. So the first thing, we're going to get our darks in first. So we're painting alla prima, and what I'll do is kind of do dash lines. I don't want to fill in everything all the time with kind of boring straight lines. So I add a little bit of brown in there and some of that darker color. Like that. And then again, parallel stroke. So if you look up my videos on brush strokes, practicing brush strokes with Petri, you'll see that we practice all these that I'm doing right here. This one's the parallel brush stroke, which is basically you rest your hand on the paper, point your brush down, touch the paper, and then just move it across, straight across, like that. And you get a nice even parallel stroke. And then now we'll do a vertical brush stroke. Basically the same idea. Hand rests on the paper, you point your brush down, and then you just go straight on down like that. And then I'll go into the painting like this. Get some of those darks to tie in to the painting itself. And as you can see, we're already starting to form the window panes. And then let's start using some greens, mixed maybe a little darker greens here. Again, we're painting into the light, so we're going to have darker colors here. So these greens are going to be really dark. I'm almost making them like a dark brownish green, like this. And you can see I'm just pressing, point, press, move the brush. And this one up here, this leaf form is, again, we're using green with some brown and black mix to get a nice dark look. Because the sunshine's shining through the window this way, so we're kind of getting that effect of like things are looking kind of dark. And you're getting a nice, beautiful silhouette feel. And we'll maybe work on the vase. The vase is going to be, let's use some blue and yellow ochre. It's going to be darker here in the center. I'll pick up some of that like this. Then I take my brush and just smooth out the water toward the edges of the vase. Take some more darks. As it's darker in the center of the vase and the light starts to wrap around the vase this way from behind. So you'll kind of see that I'm trying to get that feel of the light. And then let's do some beautiful there's some reflections here. And we'll do a little bit darker there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And we can lift up, make this a little bit lighter. You can use a tissue and make things a little lighter if you want. If you feel like you went too dark, you can do that. Maybe make your shadow a little darker. So I'm making more brown and black. Okay. I would say, looking at this, not too much. The shadows would be up here more or less. The reflections, I should say. And shadows, the shadows, let's say. They're going to be closer this way. So let's leave those shadows there. Let's make them a little bit cooler. Let's make some blue in there. Bluish green, maybe. A couple splashes. Let's do some pinks and reds here for the flowers. So we're going to get the flowers looking rich in color in the centers, and then we make them lighter toward the outer edges of the flowers where the light's shining. So we do that by rinsing off the brush. Once we put our colors down, rinse off the brush, dry off the brush a little bit. We don't want to have too much water on there. And then we just slowly blend that paint outwards toward the edges of the petals of the flower. And then again, rinse off, dry off the brush a little, and then just use a little damp brush like that. Same thing, rinse off the brush. And at this point, we're using very clean water. You have to remember, your water's going to get dark and murky when you're using these darks like this. So probably a good bet, the best bet is to, once you get your darks in, like your window frame and your vase and your shadows and your darker green leaves, perfect time to take a break, empty your water, and let's do that. Let me practice what I preach. I'm going to take a quick break now, empty my water, get fresh, clean water, and this way we can finish up some of these lighter flower petals in the center of this bouquet here in this vase. And then we'll just do a touch more of color to the outside windows and the glass table here, and then we'll be all set. We'll have a beautiful, easy, quick painting, flowers for your occasional card. You'll be happy. We'll do a few more details too with the stems of the flowers, and you're going to see it's going to look really wonderful once we're completed. And we're going to peel off the tape, and you'll see how it creates a beautiful painting within a card, and it looks great. Okay, so be right back. Okay, welcome everybody. We're getting just we're getting started again here. I always mention too, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing here on this channel. We make videos every week. We do everything watercolor, and we do all your favorite subject matter. So it's flowers one week, it's occasional cards the next, it's boats the following week. The next week after that, it's landscape painting, then seascapes and beaches, and on and on. We do all the favorite subject matter you love to paint, draw and paint here on this channel. So I'm just hoping you'll subscribe and have a great time. Also, since this is the beginner series, the Extreme Beginner Series, we're always trying to cover basics too. Also, using more beginners type art gear. So a beginner's palette, beginner's brushes. You can get great and tremendously beautiful paintings with simple art supplies. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on fancy art equipment unless you want to. You can do that. You can research as much as you like and spend the money that you want to, that you have in your budget. But you can trust me, you can start out real simple, maybe just $20, $30, $40, and you can have brushes, your palette, and your paper, and you're ready to go. And you can just paint right along with us, and you'll see how your progress is really going to improve. So again, we're going to focus back in on our occasional card here. We got our darks in first, of course, and we're doing the alla prima method, which means we're just painting everything at one time. We're not really doing light glazes and washes over the paper and letting that dry, and then coming back in and doing another glazing and then letting that dry and so forth. You've seen that on my channel. And let me say, if you're brand new here and this is your first time on my channel and seeing my videos, welcome. Great to have you here. Many of you are sending comments into the comments section on my YouTube video saying, hey, this is the first time I'm painting, and I'm just really proud of you that you're going to work with watercolors. It takes time, so give yourself tons of patience. Be patient with yourself. Don't worry. You're going to do a lot of, messy looking paintings and things are going to go wrong. That's totally fine. Every watercolor artist will tell you that in the beginning it's rough going. The same for me. I spent years when I first started watercolor painting making all the mistakes, and making lousy paintings, having some good ones here and there. Little by little, I kept learning and growing, learning more information, practicing, and eventually I got much better, and you'll do the same thing as I did. It's no rocket science. It's just practicing on a consistent basis, and if you're too tired sometimes, that's when you put on a YouTube video, or you might be some Google researching on paintings of other great artists in the history, and do a little bit of researching when you get bored, or not bored, but kind of tired or burned out on your painting, let's say, in drawing. That happens all through my time as a watercolor artist. There was times when I just got too tired from work, came home, I would just put on YouTube videos and watch painters paint. So you can watch YouTube artists paint. I bought some DVDs from great artists and watercolor artists and watched those. Not to get off on a tangent here, but I always want to encourage everybody. It does take time to learn watercolor. Don't believe that you have to learn it in like 6 months or a year. It takes years to really get good at it. Give yourself plenty of patience. And I always say, I'm trying to teach you all the things that I learned over a long period of time. I'm trying to teach you them quickly so that you don't have to take all that many. Let's say I can maybe shorten up the time that you have to work at trying to figure out all the difficult things about watercolor. So I'm hoping I know I'm achieving that, because many of you have sent in your beautiful paintings. I've looked at the paintings and I wasn't sure if it was my painting you were sending me back. Actually, it was many times. Many of you out there, you probably know who you are, because I've told you when you emailed me, I sent you back an email and said, you're doing an incredible job, because I was really confused. It took me, I wasn't even sure if it was my painting or theirs. It took me a while. Like I had to sit there really for like 10 or 5-10 minutes and look and go, oh yeah, it is their painting. But it looked so close to mine. I said, wow, that's incredible. So many people are having great progress and having great success. So just stick with my channel. Keep practicing. When you get bored, no problem, tune out for a while, whatever you got to do. But trust me, if you're watching all the time, you really pick up a lot just by watching the videos and listening in and watching what we're doing. So let's continue on here. We're almost completed. I think I will use my flat brush here. And I got fresh, clean water, as I said. So I changed my water out, especially when we're using dark, muddy-looking colors or darker washes like this. When you want to finish up a painting and get some lighter washes, let's say, you want to use fresh, clean water. Otherwise, those lighter washes you might want to do are going to turn muddy looking, and that'll kind of make your painting looking dull and kind of messy looking. So and unpleasant washes of muddy colors doesn't look good. So we're kind of at the, let's do some blue here. So I'm going to take some blue, mix in a little bit of that brown and black, but only a little bit, just to get that blue looking like a cerulean blue, that little muddy kind of look to it. It's got a little bit of a opaqueness to it. That looks pretty good, and we'll do some of that. Let's get some of that blue over here. So we're going to try to frame out the picture, thinking that when we peel up the tape, we want a little bit of a defined border around this. So I'm using my flat brush here, square brush, and I'm just trying to lighten this up here and kind of maybe a couple splashes. We'll touch up the flowers a little more. I think the flowers might need a little bit of touching up here and there, but we'll just kind of get this, again, making like a cerulean blue. And I think it looks good if we can keep it dark on the outer edges and then make it lighter on the inside here. And I'm just scrubbing around that paint. I'm going to get a little bit of that blue too on the table. I want to leave that table maybe a little bit warmer. And we're using some of that yellow ochre kind of color. Okay. And as you can see, I'm just adding in that little bit of color around the flowers. And that looks good. Now we'll go back with our round brush again. Maybe we'll go straight in and get some of that darker red here and there. Maybe a little bit of this pinkish red here. And then we'll try to blend that in with our tissue, drying our brush off. Maybe some yellow flowers. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange over here. Maybe just a little bit of color, a little bit of orange and yellow to give ourselves a little bit of variation. I'll put a little bit of splashing here and there just to give it a little bit of interesting texture. I think that looks good. So I hope you've had a fun time. We're really, maybe a few more things we can do. Actually, the best thing to do now is we've done a lot of washes in the glass here, like the window. So we've done all those washes on the window panes. And we already did the window trim, the panes, actually the grills of the window. Now we did the window glazings and the table. So this paper's pretty wet. We should let it dry just a little bit before we come back and do the stems of these flowers, because the flowers need these dark stems to look really good. So let's do that. Let's take a quick break now. Again, it's all watercolor. You're going to notice a lot of times it's about taking breaks, letting things dry a little bit. We can use a blow dryer. Maybe I'll use a blow dryer to dry this up fast, and then I can come back in like 5 minutes and finish it up. If I was to let this dry naturally and I didn't want to use a blow dryer, it would maybe take about a half an hour, 20 minutes to half an hour to dry as much that I needed to. And then I can come back and finish up some of the rest of the details here. Okay, so let's take a quick break. Again, it's your choice if you want to use maybe like a hair dryer to dry off some of this wash now. Or you can wait 10, 20 minutes maybe. Half an hour probably would be ideal. And then you can go back in and we'll do our final details. So in any case, we'll be right back. We'll finish up our details and we'll have a finished card, and we'll peel off the tape and show you how you can put a message on your card and maybe put in some writing in the interior of your card too. Your message you'll put in there. Okay, all right, so we'll be right back. All right, I did use a hair dryer, everyone, and I got this dry perfectly so that it's anywhere I touch very lightly on this painting, it's dry. Great way that you can tell if your painting's dry is real simple. You're not going to see any bit of glossiness or wetness to your paper. It's going to look like very dry and like chalky looking or dry looking. It doesn't have any shine to it at all. So that's when you know your paper is 100% dry. There might be some dampness underneath the paper, but if you use a hair dryer, it'll dry the surface of the paper, and then the underside might be a touch damp, but you won't have any problem because everything will be dry on the surface. So now we're going to do we'll take some more black here and brown. We're going to do some stems and some green. We're going to get our stems in, black, brown, and green. They're a little bit darker. So that when I load my brush up with that paint, straight paint, no water. Dry off the brush a little bit too with the tissue. And then you can kind of see how I have a nice point on my brush, like that. That's all you need to do. And then you just very carefully, you rest your hand on the paper like this, stabilize your hand, and you just carefully go outward with your brush stroke very slowly, and just do a little bit at a time. You can skip some spots. You can make it like a dashed line if you want. You don't have to, you could go a little bit at a time and just do little dashes to get your lines, your straight lines if you need. That's fine. And that's what I do, and it works great. So you do some dashed lines. So that's it right there. We have the couple stems for this flower, and this one over here too on this side over here on the left and the right. And what else can we do here? Well, I think to really create a really wonderful look to this painting, if we add some of the pinks and reds to the glass table here, and even some in the windows a little bit. There is some in the colors that we have on the window glazings, the actual window itself, the glass. But if we take a little bit of that pink and red and just add it a little bit here, and then over here, it's going to harmonize the whole painting. It's going to make it look so much better. I think you're going to agree. If you finish your painting and you don't have any of this red and pinkish color on your glass table, and then you add it on there, you'll notice it does look a lot better. And then I add some into the glass over here too on the windows. So I just add a little bit of the pinkish color. And what that does is it makes everything look like it's all blending together in one harmony, like it's a harmony, like all singers singing together at one time. You know how great that sounds, right? You have some of your favorite songs where they have all those voices and they all sing at the same time, and they sing the same note perfectly at the same time, and it just sounds so good. It's got that harmony to it. That's like what happens when you're painting here and you're using all your colors and adding some of the same repeating colors of your flowers into the other parts of your painting. You'll notice it really does make everything harmonize together, versus maybe things looking kind of like disjointed where you just have like 1 or 2, 3 red flowers here and then there's no other red in the painting. It looks a little bit more like harsh and not as smooth as you would have if you were to take some of that pink and red and add it into the other washes around your also, a great artist once told me you can also harmonize a painting simply by, once it dries 100%, you can take just like one color and with a large flat brush, maybe like, let me see if I have one over here. Like this here, if you have a large, this is the same thing, this is a Princeton art and brush company flat brush, and that comes in that little kit. If you buy that little small package of brushes, maybe like 5 or 6 brushes in one package for like $8 or $10, you get this one too. And then what we could do if we wanted to, we don't have to, but we did already add the pink around and the red around the whole painting. But you could also accomplish this by, if you wanted to, let's say, give it a golden color, you could actually let this all dry 100% and then really quickly with fresh clean water mix up a gold wash like this and then go over the whole painting really quickly, like this, with a gold wash. And let's do it, see what happens here. We're experimenting live on TV. You can do that and just take the whole painting and put a gold color over the top. But you can only do 1 or 2 strokes, and that's it. You can't keep going over and over. But you'll notice that looks good too. Adding that golden raw sienna or yellow ochre color to your whole painting. And we can do it because it was dry. You can only do that when your painting's 100% dry. And you got to do it quickly, 1 or 2 strokes, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's it. And you can't use a ton of water, just enough to dampen your brush and get some paint on there. But these are things you practice. It takes time to do that. You can ruin a painting by just doing what I did, so I wouldn't do that entire glazing over the top of your finished painting unless you don't mind having a painting not turn out great, and then you can just try another one and not do it. Or you can even do your yellow and orange. You can use your yellow, orange, yellow, orange, a little bit of brown. You make your yellow ochre color like this. You could take your watercolor paper and then prime it and glaze it first, and that would be the glazing technique. The first thing you do before anything else is go over the whole painting with a really light wash of that yellow ochre color. Let that dry 100%, and then you can do your painting over top of that. And it'll give it a harmony too, because you'll have that whole undercoating of that golden color, that sunshine golden color. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can try with watercolors. Have fun with it. Try all different things. Don't get discouraged. Some paintings are going to come out good. Some are not going to come out great. You don't have to worry. You're in the beginning, when you're just starting out and you're a beginner, remember, you're just going to keep going, having fun, and don't sweat things if a painting doesn't come out good or if you come out bad. Don't worry about it. Just keep working at it. Stick with us here. Have a great time. We'll be back soon for more videos, and let's just see how this looks when we, again, we're getting off our mission here. Our mission was to do our card, our occasional card, and we did accomplish our mission. Maybe we can see how much better it looks once you peel off that tape, and that's why I say that tape, bordering any paintings you're doing, even practice paintings, if you're bordering all your practiced paintings and your finished paintings, and if you're doing occasional cards like this, if you're taping around the border, you're going to be so much happier with the results, because once you peel off the tape, it's like a framed painting. So that's why I suggest you always do that. Put the tape on there. You'll be so much happier. It'll make your paintings look better. And that's what we have it here. A nice, beautiful occasional card like that. You just set it on the table like that. That's perfect. And then you just put your messages on here. You know, you can take a pencil and do a dry run first. You might want to take a ruler, make a level line on here so you don't go off track too far when you do your writing. So when you do your writing, you take a pencil first, do a light line first. You can always erase it. And then you do your pencil lines. And you just write in script, whatever your message is. In pencil first, lightly. Then when you see it looks good in your pencil, when you do your pencil, when you're doing your message in pencil, very lightly first, then you get your line here, a nice level line. Do your pencil writing first, lightly. Then you can go over with a pen or a marker. You can go over with Sharpie markers. Sharpie markers, office pens. There's different kinds of colors. You can use red. There's pink Sharpie markers. You can use pink. You can have any imaginable fun writing on your cards with any type of pens, markers, pencils. And then what I do is I open the card up and I do the same thing. I make a couple pencil lines lightly with a ruler, maybe 5 or 6 lines, however many lines I think I might need, 5 or 6 pencil lines really lightly, just like this. One. I might measure them and say, let me make them 1 centimeter apart from each other. 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters. You go right on down the line. Then you just take your ruler and then you just start with that hash mark you just made. 1 line there, 1 line there, and you just keep going down like that. Right down until you're to the bottom of the card. Then you would maybe pick out a poem that you can find online, like a nice poem or a saying that you want to put in the card, or you even create your own. you would create that first on some scrap paper, write it all out first, make any changes you need to make first, get it perfect on scrap paper, then you go in and do it with a light pencil for, again, on this here, and once it's perfect with light pencil, your message, you put it in light pencil first, and then you go over the top with your magic markers, or your pens, or your ink, whatever you have, crayons, and you do it over the top of your light pencil line. And then after that, then you just go in and take your eraser. We have erasers here, and we just erase it. So you erase on top of your ink. So if you have magic markers and felt tip pens, anything like that, once you do your message and you write your message, your finished message with your pens, the pencil lines come off easy. You just go right over the top of everything, and you can erase over your pen or your markers, and all the pencil lines come off, and all you're left with is your ink or your pencils, your felt pens, whatever you're using to write. And it'll look perfect and beautiful, and you're all set. And then you have your card. And if you want to send it to someone, that's fine too. You just have to buy a large enough envelope that it fits in, and you'll be all set. So I'm hoping you're going to have a great time with these occasional cards, everybody. Thanks for coming by and watching here, and I wish you the best with all your art paintings, and especially with your cards, your occasional cards. And we're going to see you very, very soon on the next video. Okay? Bye-bye.